Ice climbing, the art of moving over water ice, crafting support with crampon and ice axe. It requires the strength and technical know-how of rock climbing, the experience and stamina of mountaineering, and an intimate knowledge of a material that can change from being a brittle crystal to a liquid in a single day. A knowledge that only comes through experiencing winter wilderness and addressing its risks on ice. Curtain Call at the Columbia Icefields in Jasper National Park, Alberta. The quintessence of large volume, steep, big blue Canadian ice. Professional mountain guide and photographer Jay Smith has been climbing for over 25 years. He and fellow alpinist Conrad Anker have ascended many peaks throughout the world, including the Himalaya and Andes.
The second pitch on Curtain Call was steep, and usually steeper ice isn't as well bonded as lower angle ice because it drifts down in a vertical sort of plane, forms little icicles, and we call them chandeliers.
Turn out, walk off.
You have to swing your tools 5, 6, 7 times to get something that you like, and it's often a process of clearing that loose, fragile ice out of there so you can get a good placement.
One guy does it, and it's one way, and as soon as he's done climbing it, the next person has a totally different experience because the ice has changed that much in one ascent. That's kind of the beauty of ice climbing.
Okay, dude. All right. Safe up there, man. Here we go. Ice climbing, pretty bizarre sport. That's pretty killer up here, Conrad.
You have two tools. You're basically backed up. You test them. You make sure it's good. You put your life on your decision right there. If the tool's good, well, then you don't need the screw, and you just keep climbing. My feeling is that if the ice is good, you don't need the pro, and when the ice is poor, and you want the pro, generally you can't get it anyway. Basically, that's the way I climb. I get those tools in to where I feel that I could fall totally onto one and not worry about it.
I had a fantastic time out there. The location was fantastic. 2 very steep pitches, full value, 50 meters, rope stretchers. It's always a pleasure to get out climbing with Jay.
Alex Lowe, affectionately known as the Fiend, has summited Mount Everest twice and won the International Speed Mountaineering Contest held in Russia. He is one of the world's leading alpinists and mountain guides.
There you go. See how much easier that went in? Whoop.
Unfortunately, ice climbing is pretty serious in nature. You're sort of festooned with a lot of spiky metal things, and falling off ice climbs with all those things attached to your body is usually fairly injurious and to be avoided at all costs. Climbing with Kitty it's great. Kitty's a piece of work. She's got the most infectious belly laugh of any woman I've ever climbed with. She likes to come off as a good old Southern gal, just little old Southern gal, but don't let her fool you.
When I was little, I liked playing outside, and I played outside a lot. And then I went to college up in Vermont, and I went skiing quite a bit, but I got tired of standing in lift lines, so I tried ice climbing. And I like ice climbing because it seems adventurous. Not so many people do it.
Kitty Calhoun Grissom, the first woman to climb Makalu, the world's 5th highest peak, is one of the leading female alpinists and mountain guides in America.
Well, if you do it in front of your face, ice is more likely to break off, or else sometimes your tools ricochet and they pop you and you can get scars and stuff.
There's a huge difference between climbing pure ice and climbing mixed routes. Mixed routes to me are where it all comes together. You use all the rock climbing skills you've gained over the years, your direct aid techniques, pounding pitons and ferreting out little pieces of protection, and then of course all the techniques you learned on ice, just hauling off and bashing as hard as you can when it's thick enough.
So I think people that are interested in doing this kind of climbing should have a very humble and respectful attitude and accept a long apprenticeship when they learn to do this, because it's a serious game.
Well, what I find appealing about ice climbing is that it challenges me physically, mentally, and emotionally. I end up doing things that I wasn't sure I could do, and I end up with more self-confidence. It's fun sharing intense experiences with another partner.
Yeah, the ice conditions the day Kitty and I climbed the pillar in Rifle were pretty grim. It's funny because we walked up to this thing and we thought, Kitty and I looked at each other and said, this is a piece of cake. We'll walk in the park, we'll just have a good time here. And turned out to be a long, long pitch. Mentally very taxing. Very, very few good placements, and those were hard won.
I guess the thing about Alex and the way he climbs is different from the way I climb, is that he's really strong, and maybe I'm a little more careful about conserving energy and conserving strength. I was also impressed that he put in a good bit of protection even on a pitch that was probably easy for him, and it made me feel not so bad about putting in a lot of protection, and I think it's too risky to just try to reach the top of the hard part before you fall, just because you can't stop and put in protection. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody, because if I thought like I was trying to prove something, then I think I'd feel some kind of outside pressures to do something that I may not feel comfortable with, and it might interfere with my judgment. And so I really just climb for myself. If it wasn't rewarding, then I would quit. I have to plan where I'm gonna go and where I'm gonna swing my tools, and how I'm going to be able to stay in balance and not use up a lot of energy. You need to be determined not to fall when you're leading. Ice climbing requires a lot of patience, because you have to figure out the moves, and it requires good judgment. In ice climbing, there's a lot of things to worry about. I really try to focus and think about what I have to do next instead of worrying about how far I'm gonna fall. Then it's pretty easy to panic and sort of lose it. When I feel like I'm nervous, then I think that all my muscles tense up and I use or waste a lot of energy, so I try to take deep breaths, and sometimes I'll just stay still and try to relax all my muscles one by one until they're all relaxed, and realize that I can hang out. It's mostly just mental. When I get scared, then I start tensing up. You need to figure out how you're going to get off the route, how you're going to get off if somebody gets hurt or the weather or it gets dark. Maybe there's avalanche danger getting to the route, or there's avalanche danger above the route. It's always hard to back down because you'll never know if you could have done it or not, but it's actually worth being conservative because the risks are so great in ice climbing if you get hurt. For me, I enjoy long routes because I like looking around and getting up high. I like swinging leads with somebody and getting into sort of a rhythm and spending all day on a climb. It's kind of fun.
Well, there's a fellow who is a fairly widely respected ice climber from a generation ago who made the, to me, fairly ridiculous statement that ice climbing is dead. And I think that's it's amazing that anybody could actually say that. Because to me, it's the most alive and open-ended activity in the realm of climbing today. I definitely prefer first ascents over established routes because that whole factor of the unknown. When I look for a first ascent, I'm just looking for something that's beautiful and appeals to my artistic sense. And I think ice climbing is a very artistic thing. It's like climbing in glass castles a lot. The beautiful part comes when it all sort of melds together and the distinctions become less clear between what's rock and what's ice. It's just all sort of the unified field theory of ice climbing. It's all just climbing. Okay, so we should talk a little bit about ice technique, how to climb ice here. And the place where you're going to shatter and displace the least ice is going to be in the grooves, in the concave places. So, as a general rule, I would choose to climb a line where I can
make a lot of placements in between two bulges. You can find right here, notice there's actually a little hole already started, just naturally occurring. So when I try to hit that, it may take a couple of swings, but I'm displacing a lot less ice when I go into a groove with a natural hole already existing. So I'll aim right for a place like that rather than, notice what happens, I can always guarantee that I won't get a good placement. It shatters a whole lot more ice away. It just has to. It's just the laws of physics in ice climbing. To reiterate the point, look for concave surfaces and small grooves on a large scale as far as ways to get up an entire pitch, and also on a micro scale as far as places to put your individual placements.
Yeah, Miami Ice it's good fun stuff. Was it climbable? We had no idea. In fact, everything indicated that it wasn't climbable in the traditional sense of climbing ice. But to me, that's just sort of an invitation to go look further. But the fact that it's not touching down, to me, it's not a deterrent. It just sort of leaves that big question mark hanging over the whole project, which is tantamount to a good experience.
Sure, I love to push, radical moves and hook really thin ice, but I'm always thinking, if the whole thing collapses and comes apart, can I back myself up?
On Miami Ice, to me it seemed pretty obvious that I needed to use some aid techniques and get up and sink a bunch of pins. And if I couldn't get them, I just wouldn't be interested in trying the route, because there's the potential for the whole thing to collapse with catastrophic results.
And that's why you gotta expect that it could fall off, but it makes for fascinating climbing. What I like to do on big, thick ice is just start with the axe well back behind my shoulder, gain the momentum with some arm motion, but at the end, stop the wrist and let the wrist go limp and let the momentum of the head finish the job for you. So the momentum of the head is uninhibited by my arm, but then at the end, it's basically the weight of the head that drives it into the ice. But when you do overdrive it, you want to know how to get it out. The thing you never want to do is use a lot of side-to-side motion. This is bad. It's pretty obvious what's going to happen. On a cold day, lots of brittleness in the ice and your metal, and you're going to break your picks off. First thing you want to try is to pull back. If that doesn't release it, sometimes a hit on the bottom end of the shaft will break the pick loose in the ice. A couple of hits, and then a backward pull. If none of those work, usually an upward force on the back of the head will remove the pick, and you can use the heel of your hand or the crotch of between your thumb and your index finger. So those are 3 techniques for getting your picks out when you've driven them in too far. You're bashing on something that's basically cylindrical in shape, it's got to displace somewhere, and it's got to be big enough to absorb that displaced ice, and there just wasn't enough there.
combination of just being a small volume of ice and that ice being brutal made it pretty hard. And there actually came a point when I was kind of worried about the whole thing sort of busting off and bashing me on the head. So, you know, being not entirely crazy, figured it was time to retreat, which is really important to know when to do in ice climbing. Okay, one of the most important things I think is to avoid this cycle of repeated movements up on shaky tools. In other words, from the time you leave the ground, your very first tool placement, if you can make this placement and believe in it, know that it's a good placement, then you've got a lot stronger foundation for working on the next tool. As soon as you accept one bad placement and move up on it, then the next placement, you're not going to have the confidence to place this tool well, because you're going to be eyeballing this shaky placement out of the corner of your eye going, oh man, I hope it doesn't blow out. Okay, give it a good test. Don't have to think about that tool again. I've tested it. Now I can, with confidence, work on this next one. Give it a serious jerk. And I don't have to think about that tool anymore. That's really my attitude about it. That tool has proven itself. All that really matters to me now is making the next placement. So what I want to really stress is that you should never climb out on a tool placement that you don't believe in. There's a tendency for people to want to make a placement here and then make a second placement at exactly the same level, which is very secure, and then move their feet up. What I would rather do is go ahead and go well above that tool. It separates my two tools, so I'm not disturbing the ice, and it also is the most efficient method of gaining height. You know, I don't consider myself a rash and crazy person. I mean, I don't have a death wish, I have a life wish. And that's what climbing is a way of attaining that life wish. I guess climbing without a rope it allows the ultimate freedom. It's really fun to go out and just cover huge amounts of ice by yourself. Climbing on rope is really stupid. Don't do it. It's the craziest thing you can do. The ground is really hard and it really hurts, and it's forever.
The Canadian Rockies. Alpine faces thousands of feet high. Massive glaciation. Arctic temperatures and variable snowpack. It all combines to create some of the finest ice climbs on the planet, and the hardest to get to, unless you have a horse. Like Alex Lowe, globe-trotting alpinist and mountain guide Charlie Fowler enjoys the freedom of unroped climbing.
Sailing on ice is tremendously exhilarating because the tools and the techniques allow you to just do the wildest things without a rope and really move rapidly. People have to be really honest with themselves about what they can do and about using good judgment. That's why I say that knowing your limits is really important. And then when you do know your limits, stick to that. Don't let peer pressure or ego or anything like that get in the way of good judgment. I'm not afraid to back off an ice climb, you know, even an easy one, if it doesn't feel right. I do that all the time. I go out and conditions aren't right. I'll go up a little ways or whatever, and if it doesn't feel right, I'll just come down and go home, do something else, come back another day. I'm not afraid to do that. The tools and the techniques allow you to cruise in the mountains very, very fast. And that's what I like most, I think, in climbing. The thing that I enjoy the most is going out and climbing a mountain just by myself. And the first thing I'm going to explain with using your feet is the fundamental way that you're going to swing them into the ice and get them to stick, and the position that they should be in. You want to have a pretty good aim with your feet, just as you do with your hand tools, and I'm going to look for little divots, little flat platforms, something like that, and swing decisively into that. The key thing here is that when I swing in, I want to have my foot be in a really comfortable position with the sole of my foot and my crampons parallel to the horizon.
You know, of all the kinds of climbing that I do, ice is the one that I feel the least confident about. It's actually quite intimidating stuff. It's very impermanent, for one thing. You know it's not going to be there very long. So when you're climbing, you start to almost do a mental countdown of just how long can I hang around on this thing before it melts and disintegrates. But every time I go ice climbing, I find I learn something new about the activity. It's a challenging kind of climbing pursuit. Ice climbing still scares me. There's something strange about it. You know, it doesn't get much weirder than ice climbing. And every time I get out there on the ice, I realise that I'm a lot more rattled on ice than I am on any other kind of climbing. You have to believe in yourself and you have to believe in your equipment before you can accept that a few millimetres of metal sticking into melting ice is enough to keep you there. You can't be thinking you're going to fall. You have to be sure that you're going to stay there and get to the top. Because it's very hard to get off an ice climb if you are halfway up you decide you don't want to be there. So the first few ice climbs that I ever did were back in the 70s when the kind of picks and crampons that people used were much more primitive than the stuff that people have today. Long before we had modern ice tools, this is what people used to climb with: wooden shafted ice axes with not much of a droop to the pick, and they didn't even have crampons. They used to climb ice slopes in the Alps in the 1930s with boots that had nails in the soles. And this is how they used to climb, by cutting steps with their ice axe. Now you can understand why climbers decided they needed crampons. The first ones weren't too unlike these. They were hinged so they could move around on your soft boots, and you strapped them to your feet with these long straps. They were hard to get on and they weren't very user-friendly. By the early 80s, this is what we had for climbing ice: rigid platforms that clamped onto your boots and with dagger-like front points. And some crampons even mimic the shape of an ice axe. Then people started to experiment with ice axes. They started changing the shapes of the picks. Like this. Now these things were even less user-friendly than the crampons. And here's the evolution of the ice axe. Curved shafts so you don't bang your knuckles to bits on the ice when you strike the ice, and cleverly drooped picks that really sink into ice very well. Well, that's a short history of ice climbing, which brings us up to the present, and now it's time just to have some fun.
Besides being an accomplished writer, Greg Child has also summited K2 and Mount Everest. Originally from Australia, Greg now lives in Seattle, Washington. Here he is on one of America's most famous routes, the Rigid Designator.
Sometimes I wonder what the ice climbs of the future are going to look like. And I think that they'll probably look pretty much like what we've already achieved, except for the fact that we'll probably be doing them thousands and thousands of feet off the ground, in the Himalayas, in the Andes, in really, really remote places. I think to get the next level of alpine climbing, you're almost going to have to totally throw fear out the window. The kind of climbs that will be more futuristic are going to be ones that have virtually no possibility of getting protection in. I think you have to have your dreams. Maybe it'll be something where you're reaching out with your ice tools around a roof, chipping in by a couple of millimeters into a goatee of ice. You're at 25,000 feet in the Himalayas and you swing around on that ice axe and you look down and all you can see is your crampons swinging in the breeze. And that really excites me. That kind of climbing is what I dream of being able to do.
Mountain guide and veteran Himalayan alpinist Lyle Dean loves to put up first ascents, especially in the San Juan Mountains of southern Colorado. Here Lyle works his way up a new climb in the skylight area above Ouray.
Right there. Now I have to get set up to drill again somehow.
The ice climbing in that upper section on the left side is excellent. It's probably one of the steeper sort of overhang ice sections out of all those routes up there. When you're using the tools in a diagonal position, you're basically lay backing or laying away off of the tools, similar to rock climbing. I like to ice climb and I like to rock climb, and so the combination of the two just makes it the most ideal way to climb.
Ouray, Colorado, just east of Telluride, site of North America's first ice park. In an unprecedented cooperation joining ice climbers, landowners, and local business, water has been artificially tapped and directed to flow over natural cliffs, creating a rich variety of ice climbs. Colorado local Duncan Ferguson is one of the true masters of ice climbing. Duncan has been climbing for almost 30 years and a professional guide for 20.
Ice climbing is a contrived sport. I mean, it's a ridiculous activity. I started ice climbing for something to do in the winter. Probably the same reason most of us started, you know, because you couldn't go rock climbing all year long. And I think I really enjoyed the subtleties and complexities of it. When the ice runs out and you've got to climb on the rock, the thing that's really critical is that you start thinking about these things you got in your hands as appendages. And by placing the pick deep into the crack and then turning it a little bit, what you're getting is enough torque on it to hold it in. And one of the keys here is to keep pressure on it. As soon as you let go, it's going to pop right out. Anytime you can find a good constriction, you can often get a really good tool torque in here. Sometimes they're wonderful, just like this, and other times they border on the ridiculous, like that. They're both valid and both very secure. Whether you've got single points, mono points like this, or the more standard double points, they work on rock just as your rock shoes would, just they don't have as much friction. They not only work on little edges, but they work just fine in cracks too, especially little thin ones. It's all in the realm of possibility. These new tools are so efficient. It is a bunch of mental and physical puzzles. I mean, if climbing ice or climbing rock was all like climbing ladders, we'd all have quit a long time ago. You can often gain a little bit of thickness, a little bit of ice depth by swinging at an angle. Sort of like this. Sometimes you get fracturing, sometimes not. But in good ice, it'll give you just that little extra bit to hook your tools on. You're creating little platforms, you're not blasting. You ruin your tools and the ice by hitting too hard. It really requires, for me, a strong element of control, and I like that. It's as much a cerebral and mental activity as it is a physical one, probably even more so because of the nature of the climbing. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience is most often the result of bad judgment. The expensive drop, whether you reach the top or not, is almost immaterial as long as you have a good time and you do it safely.
Located next to the Ophir Wall in southern Colorado is the beautiful area known as Crack Canyon. Duncan and Lyle teamed up to take on the coveted two-pitched Crack Canyon icefall.
Pretty good.
This climb is a treat. I mean, it's so nice to get good protection, rock protection, on hard ice climbing. The moves are just such a treat going across the ramp. It actually lets you use some of those techniques and skills that you wouldn't dare try 50 feet out from a bad screw. At least I wouldn't. I mean, it's been so warm and there's so much going on. Lots of stuff falling down. You could see daylight behind the icicle, and pulling around and committing to it, to me, was the scariest part. Way more scary than the hard rock moves. The heel hook is a real big help. And actually, when it was difficult, it was really critical for me. It actually allowed me to rest a little bit there in the really tight spot. Okay, you're on.
day it was just so warm, so the ice was kind of hollow and rotten in a lot of spots, and it was hard to find good sticks. I evaluate the ice by the sound when I hit it with tools, and also the just visually looking at it, I could tell that it was going to be potentially very fragile.
It's a really pretty climb. It has such a nice line. You actually have something to follow, nice terrain and exposure in this canyon, which is great. I mean, it's just beautiful. Can't wait to come back and go rock climbing here.
Really, 'cause just last week or something, I was climbing and there was another guy there and he was like, I had just dug the pillar and it went really well. You know, I just felt smooth. And this guy said, hey, don't you know women aren't supposed to ice climb? All right. Well, see you in a bit. Ooh, awesome. You can't fall ice climbing because you got to think that you've got sharp tools in either hand and really sharp things on your feet, and all of them will catch in the ice, and if they don't catch in the ice, they'll catch on your body, and you can get really nasty injuries that way. Big one! Sorry. The climb was a lot of fun. The ice was good. The belay was good. The view was good. Everything was good.
Just trying to find a partner sometimes is a bit difficult. It's so nice to climb with a girl. I don't know. You usually end up climbing with your boyfriend or else some guy, and then he expects you to go to bed afterwards. I mean, better not say that.
Patagonia is a special place. The Serratore Massif is unlike any other granite spire range in the world. Very striking, very beautiful, and very big. For us, there's no place we'd rather be. Superb rock, beautiful vistas, and atrocious weather. Well, the weather can be either good or bad depending on what one person's outlook on it is. It's a filter, keeps the riffraff out of there. the big pictures of the summits of these mountains, but traveling the cracks and the fissures and the granite nubbins and the little bits of the mountain that comprise the whole mountain, that's the art and the joy of it. It's always at moments like this that doubt comes into your mind and sort of floats around there, and should I be here? Are we doing the right thing? And can we do this? And is this what we want?
Get something going on the rocks. Absolute garbage.
Yeah, the initial pitch had a large sort of snow mushroom plastered onto the vertical rock, and Steve had a lot of fun with it. I know that he was sort of wallowing in the trough of loose, unconsolidated snow and sort of using body friction, sort of laying into the snow as best you can.
Looks like we're going to be running 2 haul bags for a while, huh? I've been looking up there. Whoa, hit it!
There was a continual barrage of rock peeling off the east face of the Torrey to the left of us.
That was a good headache right there.
It was a steady reminder of be careful, be aware, and stay on your toes and make the right decisions. Weather in Patagonia being as bad as it is and having the winds as strong as they are, the snow cave is the only option one has to camp at the base of the routes. We had a big entrance and then 3 sub doors, and well, it was a total 3-room with 3 doors, and it allowed us to live in there comfortably. Yeah, we're doing really good on time. It's 2:14. Well, let's pull it off.
Let's do it. Right, he's already third of the way up this pitch.
Well, we're up top. We should get the sun pretty early. The ice mushrooms are the summit in Patagonia, and they guard the summit from climbers attaining them. And many expeditions have gotten up to the base of the ice, but then not climbed the top of the ice. We approached the ice with great trepidation. It could have had the consistency of stale Cool Whip, and we realized that it forms these tunnels, which are an atmospheric phenomenon that just tunnel in through there, and you have to hop inside these things and burrow through them to get up towards the summit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes!
Here we are, top of the Egger, the 5th ascent, via the route Badlands.
Right, Conrad!
There's something inherent in that activity of going through the forest and getting to a remote valley where few people go to you are away from all the mechanization and you do a challenging climb and come down and walk back and have a really big day. Contact with maybe uncontaminated or undisturbed land, and I think that's just incredibly valuable to human beings.
I mean, every ice pitch is unique. There's no ice pitch that doesn't leave an impression in your mind. The first pitch was fun. I mean, a lot of what I liked about the first pitch was just the setting, sort of being deep in this water-polished groove. Yeah, it's the same sort of thing. I mean, you feel like you're sort of down there near the heartbeat of the mountain, you know, deep within solid limestone. It's a pretty place to climb. And, you know, the climbing's generally very straightforward, especially today because the ice was so plastic. It's fun. It's just a nice smooth surface. It's the antithesis of the top pitch. So it's kind of nice about that route today. It's got two very distinctly different pitches. First pitch is sort of a haul off and whack pitch, which is always fun. And second pitch is more of a sort of tiptoe around, feel your way up it sort of pitch.
It's the wind that sculpts the upper pitch, the raging Chinooks of the Rockies Front Range. I've been anchored to the top of Wicked Wanda in wind strong enough to snap me tight to my anchor, then slam me the other way. Wind that clawed my jacket into snapping patterns of waves. I couldn't look down because the ice chips from my second's axes would slash at my face. One actually had enough punch to draw blood from the underside of my nose. Yet, even on that day, the ghost got to both of us. No highway noise, primal forests, and 1,000-foot limestone walls opening onto the foothills of Alberta. It touches me every time I'm there.
Yeah, the ghost just feels big and spiritual. Despite the roar of the wind, to me it's a quiet place, a sort of spiritually quiet place. Far removed from man's intrusion.
Winter's just around the corner, man. Winter comes early in the high country.
I know a few people that have done hydrophobia first try. Going there, we went in there, it was minus 35, came out. The first ascent team got hit with this huge release of water, came off the top. They were lucky to live. You know, that's pretty common in the Rockies, and is to have adventures like that.
Climbing in Canada, it doesn't compare to anywhere else, I think, for waterfalls. The routes are bigger, prettier, they're just, you know, there it is, there's the line, okay, you know, it's obvious, here we go.
And to be out there with your good friends, that's the whole essence of climbing, is being in these really special locations and the interaction you have with your friends. That's what it's, that for me makes it. The first pitch of hydrophobia is fantastic.
real enjoyable, and it never really let up till just at the belay, a few good sticks there, but it's challenging.
Following it, I only got to swing about twice, and the rest of the time was pure hooking. Just if you swing, you're gonna shatter that stuff, and there's just less to hang on to. So best to keep it intact and hook your way up.
Is that all, girls? Right there.
Sold this pig. What was I thinking?
From here on, the ice just gets a bit sweeter and sweeter. I love these first two pitches. They just go on forever. You know, you do a bunch of climbing, you kind of think you're getting to the belay, and you look up and you're only halfway.
Okay, Joe, you're on belay.
Alrighty. Ready to climb. The glory pitch. To the summit.
I knew when I put that belay in, it wasn't really in the best spot. It's real important in ice climbing, is getting your belays in a good spot. It's kind of stupid to belay there where I did, but it's kind of out of options at that point. Paid the price.
The last 5 meters is a real sting in the tail. Like every time I've been there, you think, oh, we're just cruising to the top, and then you get this little steep thing that just totally throws you off.
I like this placement I'm on. Ice!
Ooh! I knocked that piece of ice on Jay and a big dinner plate. And that rattled me pretty good. You know, knocked the wind out of the guy who was holding the other end of the rope. You know, that's a serious proposition.
It's a bunch of bad ice up here, guys, so just watch your head.
Oh! Oh! Ow! Ah! How about going to the right?
Ice! All right!
ice out here.
Head for the summit, dude. Right. Woo.
Yeah.
Good work, guys. Awesome route.